Welcome back to Wealthy Lifestyle with author and wealth coach Deborah Owens. You can also follow Deborah on Facebook and Twitter. Now, here's Deborah.
Welcome back to Wealthy Lifestyle. I'm your host, Deborah Owens. Well, according to the National Higher Education Commission, only 33% of students who attend public universities graduate, compared with 56% of students who attend private schools. Our guest this evening, Tawan Perry, a former Morgan State graduate, has earned a national reputation as a college completion expert. He has learned the keys to unlock college success, along with offering honest advice and helping students get connected. His latest book, Up Your Org, A Guide to Help Student Leaders Thrive, is a blueprint of how to be a successful campus leader. And we want to welcome Tawan Perry to our program this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. A Morgan State grad. You know, we've got to, what can I say? Help a brother out anyway. But I'm really intrigued because when you look at the amount of emphasis that's put on getting into college and you see what these college completion rates are like. Now, I quoted a national statistic. I'm sure if we were to look at HBCUs, we would probably see some, differences there as well. So tell us first why you felt it was important to focus on the whole completion aspect of college.
Well, as a former college administrator, one of the things that I always noticed, and it didn't matter if I was at a public institution, a private institution, small or big. I mean, I've worked at a mall. The one commonality I saw was that after the first year, for the students who made it out, they oftentimes didn't make it to their third year. So the emphasis became a concentration for me on the sophomore experience. I mean, I studied this when I was in college as a grad student, but then I also ran a few programs while I was a college administrator. And for me, it really became about, okay, there's clearly a breakdown here. We spend a lot of time and resources on the first year experience, but what happens after that? And what I found was that there just wasn't a lot of support. Students would come back the second year and not have nearly the level of support, and most times they wouldn't have that support. Well, if you think about it, if we look at just the traditional age student, there's not much of a difference between an 18 and 19-year-old.
That's true.
There's not much of a difference developmentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so with students, with colleges not offering programs to help sustain these students because they're dealing with the same issues, and might I add, after that first year, a lot of them didn't know what was going on. They just were there, just taking classes, not really building relationships, not really understanding how to be successful in college. They just sort of got through their first year. And so their second year has to be a re-education, and in most cases there really isn't a re-education. So I think we have to rethink the whole college completion process, and that's why I came up with the idea of my Connect 5 college completion program. It offers workshops to focus on every year of college because every year is different.
How so?
Well, let's take, for example, your first year, you're focused on just adjusting. That is your first, that is your prime goal as a college freshman. The sophomore year, you're trying to re-familiarize yourself with the lay of the land, but also you're becoming a little bit more involved in the community, the campus community. So you're maybe taking some leadership positions. You're learning a little bit more about yourself, what interests you have. Your third year, you're making a decision. You're a junior, okay? Everyone expects you to decide upon a major. So that's what you do. And you're starting to look at internships, maybe study abroad opportunities, things like that. And then, of course, your senior year, it's all about getting a job or deciding to go to professional or graduate school. So every year is different. Then you have this other dynamic that's there that we don't even talk about that much is the non-traditional students. They're coming back to school in droves. And so how do you make that all work between the non-traditionals and the traditional students, particularly in leadership positions? So
what are your, I mean, you've been at this for a while. And again, I want to let our listeners know my conversation this evening is with Mr. Is it Tawan?
Yeah, it's Tawan.
Okay, Tawan Perry, and he is a college completion expert, but more importantly, really focused on helping students have the best experience, college experience that they can, and is looking at many of the missings, if you will, that are probably contributing to many folks or many students not being successful. And we're going to be taking your calls in just a minute. That's 410-319-8888. That's 410-319-8888. Or you're welcome to send us a Facebook message, a Twitter message. You can go right on to DeborahOwens.com and click any of those icons, and we'll be taking a look at any questions that you send us. So that's 410-319-8888. So, Tawan, you said that each year is different. So what do you think colleges and universities need to be creating to make sure that, to increase, if you will, the college completion rate based on the different years of school?
Well, clearly they have to create programs and sort of do something where the students are recognized sort of as a cohort, and they're going through this process together. You know, when you're in graduate school, you are seen as a cohort. You are seen as a collective group. And the idea of grad school is small enough for you to sort of go through that process together. So you can sort of help support each other through your woes and through your success and all that other stuff. We don't necessarily have that. I mean, you have that in what is called living learning communities on some college campuses, but for the most part, when students come in as first-year students, they're seen as 1,000 or 2,000, and whoever it's sort of a survival of the fittest. And so we have to find better ways to, really make them into cohorts and help them learn to help one another, and also help them understand the importance of relationships. That's one of the biggest things that I see that's not happening on college campuses. Students are not into relationships. I mean, they're really into relationships with kind of social media, and that's a different, animal in itself. But when it comes down to being able to ask for help and knowing where to go when you need help, because the issue isn't so much that you're not going to have problems in your college. You're going to have problems, but where are you going to go in order to help get that problem resolved? And I'll tell anybody this. When I was at Morgan State or any other institutions that I attended, I wasn't the smartest student, but I knew where to go to get help. I knew how to ask for help. And I think that's a critical piece that's missing. Students are not taught how to really network.
So when you're saying network, you're really saying to students that it's incumbent upon them to really begin to establish relationships with people within the administration who can assist them, be it faculty, be it, the financial aid office, or so that you're not just a name that you're a face.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other question that I have for you, though, Tawan, is I'm sure there are many students listening to this program, because certainly we are on an HBCU campus is where we're airing out of. And it's one thing to say that the universities or the colleges need to create these kind of programs, but what can I do as a student as an individual to facilitate some of these best practices, if you will, that you have in your book? And by the way, you can go to his website as well. It's tawanperry.com. That's TAWANPERRY.com. What can I do as a student to begin to adopt some of these practices myself so that I can be successful throughout college and afterwards?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on, it's really just about getting involved. In my experience, the students who didn't have a good experience in college were the students who were just the least involved. And not because of they had so many other commitments going on, because I completely understand students who may have to work to pay for school and things like that. I mean, that's a little different. But I'm talking about students who really clearly have the time but just choose not to involve themselves in what's happening. And then we talk about the student leaders. Student leaders are a very critical piece to college retention, improving college retention rates as well as graduation rates. The reason why they're so important is because it's about peer influence. I could tell you, I have a niece who's about 15, and I could tell her so many things that I'm blue in the face. But then her friend comes along and says the same thing or something similar, and she'll just listen to them like it's the gospel. So I think peer influence, there's something to be said about peer influence. And student leaders have such a critical role in helping to shape a college campus. I know we did when we was at Morgan, and I'm sure the student leaders on Morgan State's campus right now and other college campuses understand that. So it's very critical to properly train your student leaders so that they can go out there and really get these students connected to the campus. I mean, because that's really why you're a student leader, not because you want to build your resume, because you want to help improve the campus community by connecting students to the college campus.
Yeah, I want to step back for a minute because I think sometimes we speak in kind of broad terms. So Let's talk about specifically, strategically. I am a rising sophomore. And maybe I did not get connected as much as I could have when I was a freshman. And I'm listening to this program right now. When you say get involved, specifically, what do you mean? Do you mean in student government? And give some specific examples of how a student listening to this program could become involved on campus.
Well, let's say you're your typical student who, doesn't really know where to begin, how to get involved. One of the first things you want to do is you want to go to the office where you have a lot of student clubs, which it used to be when I was there, it was the McKeldin Center. I don't think it's called McKeldin Center anymore. But you go there and you kind of figure out, what your interests are. I mean, when students come to college, they already know some of the things that they're interested in doing. And there's usually a club for that. So not everyone needs to join the Student Government Association, but maybe you're into, playing video games. So maybe there's a club for that. And you get involved in that club and you start meeting people. And then from there, you start networking with other like-minded people. And, of course, you always want to be around folks who have similar goals and who are very positive. Certainly no good comes of it to be just a network with people who don't have the same goals that you have in mind, which is graduation. Start there, and then, of course, you find mentors. I think mentors are another critical piece to this. Mentors could be your professors. They could be folks that work on staff. When I was at Morgan State, one of my mentors was a man named Mr. Gwynn. I think he still works there, and of course, Mr. Perry. So I had mentors to sort of look towards, and so I was very intentional about my interaction with these mentors. I mean, no matter what happens, what I want to really stress around this topic is that nothing's going to fall out of the sky. No one's going to approach them. They're going to have to step out of their comfort zone at some point and really be intentional about the relationships that they build.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you said that, Tawan, and that was the reason that I wanted to get more specific, because I think there are two things that you said in your response. Number one is I am interested in it. So it's not just about picking out anything to become involved. It's really picking something that you can be interested in yourself so that you can add value. Perhaps it is some kind of strength that you have or gift that you have, and you can really share and contribute to that organization that you become involved with. And so that makes it sort of a win-win. And then secondly, I think the other thing that you said about how being specifically intentional about what those mentor relationships are like. For example, I would assume that if you were a business major, that you would want to make sure that maybe that mentor is someone in the business school who can assist you in learning about maybe internship possibilities, maybe their scholarship opportunities, and that if you really show initiative and an inclination to put yourself out there, that they can be of assistance to you.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really where it starts. It starts with interest, and then it starts after the interest is about identification. Who can I identify? Who can I talk with about getting to that next level, getting to where they may be. You know, another good place that I always talk about in my workshops is conferences. If you go to a conference, let's say if you're an engineer and you go to the NSBE conference, and NSBE stands for National Society of Black Engineers. Well, that's a good place to start, to find people who are already in the profession doing what you aspire to do.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, the other thing, Tawan, is not really, you know, sometimes they think, well, conferences, I don't have any money, but oftentimes these organizations have local chapters. I'm always amazed at the numbers of students who are even in journalism and don't realize that there is an NAB chapter, a National Association of Black Journalists, in pretty much every city, every major city that you could go into. And so it really makes more sense then to, you know, make sure that you're connected locally so that, you know, when national, so that you're made aware of what is going on and what some of the opportunities are.
Absolutely. So, you know, you hit on it right. You know, it's about getting connected. And the only way you can get connected is to start building relationships. You know, there's a slogan I have in my Connect 5 program is get connected, stay connected, graduate. That is the key to college success. You have to get connected first, and then you have to stay connected. So just like with any relationship, you have to maintain it. You know, people get into, you know, relationships. And I tell you, the best relationships are the ones that are well maintained. The relationships that are not going to go well are the ones that you ignore and you neglect. And it's the same thing. You know, if your last conversation with your mentor, quote unquote, was a year ago, then, you know, maybe y'all don't have such a great relationship.
Yeah, or good connection. And I think you said something else very critical is relationships are well maintained. And also, you know, it can't just be a, you know, one-way street. It needs to be a two-way street. You need to also think about how you can add value to that relationship as well, you know, to your mentor. Sometimes it could be something as simple as volunteering, or, you know, maybe they need something done and there's some way that you can contribute it in terms of time, and, you know, not necessarily you're lending them some expertise, because certainly they are the mentor, but there are some other ways that you can add value so your mentor can feel like you value that relationship as well.
Right. That is important, and that's something that I talk about in my book. You know, one other point I want to make while I have it on my mind to say this, you know, when one of the biggest flaws I see when students are networking is that it's all about them. It's me. Yes, you're networking with a person because you eventually want them to do something for you, but always, when you're networking initially, always come from a place of service. Always.
Absolutely.
So instead of what you can do for me, it's about what you can do for them.
That's exactly right. And how can I help you?
Right. And as far as what students have to offer, there's a lot of, let's say if you have an older mentor who may not necessarily be as technologically savvy, but they want to be. And as a student, a lot of times you know how to work a smartphone, you know how to get on the internet and all, you know how to do a lot of technologically savvy things that we oftentimes take for granted. Well, there you go. That's something that you can teach your mentor.
Yeah, that's
you can offer. So, I mean, there are a lot
that's
of
great advice.
Students can offer mentors. A lot of different things. I mean, everyone has a level of information that maybe another person doesn't know. And so it's all about doing it, which, by the way, let me say this, too. When you're in college, it's not about just attaining a degree. It's about attaining the knowledge and figuring out how can you utilize that knowledge to help other people. Because, you know, everyone's talking about this recession, and, you know, people may disagree with me on this. But the truth of the matter is it's a recession for people who are unskilled and people who haven't figured out how to problem solve. When you know how to fix problems and you have skills, you're never unemployed. You're never in a position where you're really poor. It's just a matter of repositioning yourself.
Oh, I so concur. Let me ask some folks to join in this conversation. If you're joining us this evening, my conversation this evening is with Tawan Perry. He is a college completion expert and really sharing advice on how you can have a more fruitful and more rewarding experience at college and complete college and come out of it with the kinds of tools and resources that will help you be successful above and beyond college. If you want to join this conversation, the number to call is 410-319-8888. That's 410-319-8888. Perhaps you are a student and you are struggling and you're looking for some specific strategies or tactics that you can use to be more successful. We'd love to hear from you. 410-319-8888, 410-319-8888. Or perhaps you're a parent. And so often, I think Tawan, you hit it right on the head, is if I'm the parent and I tell my child something who's a student, it doesn't penetrate at all, versus if you are if you hear it from someone else, maybe, it resonates more effectively. So again, the number to call, 410-319-8888. That's 410-319-8888. We're also taking your questions via Facebook. You can go right to DeborahOwens.com and click on any of those icons and propose a question to our guest this evening. And, I've got a question out there as well for perhaps people who have, maybe an experience in college that they'd like to lend some perspective on this conversation. So, again, 410-319-8888. Let's go to John in Baltimore. A question or comment for us this evening?
Well, I actually had a comment. One of your last comments that one of your commentators made was about the preparedness and getting the college experience. But in this day of economic uncertainty, I found that it's not really what you know, it's who you know. I've seen individuals who may be educationally qualified can't find jobs. And I've seen complete idiots receive very lucrative jobs and staying in them for decades and not really knowing what's up or what's down. So nowadays, it's not really how much book learning you have. You can have a PhD and still sit and try to figure out where can I work.
I think you were speaking on that. Tawan, you'd like to respond?
Well, I would certainly agree. Some of it is about, relationships. Again, that goes back to relationship building. And in college, you're learning how to do that. It's a good place to practice how to build relationships and how to bridge relationships. But one thing I want to say, I've never seen a unemployed brain surgeon. Never.
This is true. So knowledge, has its place as well, expertise.
Right. It has to be a level of expertise where you can solve a problem that people are having. Right now, corporations are sitting on trillions of dollars, and they have just as many problems as everyone else. If you can figure out how to help them make more money, you will be a valuable commodity. And so, again, it's about, obviously it builds relationships, but you have to also have some utility. I don't believe in just the fact that I kept this person around because, we're buddies and we're friends, but I think it's a little bit more to that, too, to that story.
Oh, yeah, I concur, and I think even more so now, you really have to be able to demonstrate that you have value. I mean, Tawan, you are definitely singing our song, and that's all about having a wealthy mindset, and that's, being able to view problems as opportunities, but more importantly, being able to solve those problems is really what makes you a valued team, a valued person on the team, and the last person they're going to want to get rid of.
I'll give you a good example, okay? Most people in America can speak English, okay? Right now, they cannot get enough teachers in China to help the Chinese to learn English, okay? That clearly is an example of being able to problem solve. Now, whether you want to go to China or not, that's another issue in itself, but it just goes to show that everyone has something to contribute. It's about how you angle yourself and your timing of it, and, of course, relationships.
Oh.
So I'll say to students, just really understand that's a principle that is universal and will serve you well in your life. So it's not just about, I got a college degree, now hire me. And I see that so much that students have this sense of, and I don't want to sound like I'm the old man or anything.
Oh, entitlement.
This sense of entitlement, like everything comes at a price. You have to decide what price you're going to pay. Because just like the Martin Luther Kings and so many other people who were involved in the civil rights movement, I mean, they marched for us to get into this position of privilege. But now we have to turn around and understand that this next generation that's coming up, they're going to pay a price if we're not willing to make some sacrifices for them.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Well, Tawan, our time is up. I want to thank you for coming on the program. Can you please let our listeners know how to get in contact with you?
Yeah, if they would like to continue this discussion or just see what I'm up to, they can reach me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or my website, which is www.tawanperry.com. And I also can be reached at my email, which is info@tawanperry.com. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation.
It's been a great conversation. Well, in our second half, we're going to be shifting gears just a little bit, and we're going to be talking about how you can also take advantage of opportunities in this current economic environment that we're in.
We welcome your suggestions here at Wealthy Lifestyle. Send your comments or questions to DeborahOwens.com. You can also follow Deborah on Facebook and Twitter.